Hi folks, my name is Inbel and I am from Behind the Wall. Today is Wednesday the 28th of August 2013, the time being, good grief, it's 20 to 5 in the morning. Last Friday, the 23rd, was going to be the final hearing of a court case in which will be decided whether Paul and Ashley Roberts would have their son returned to them, or whether they'd be separated from him forever by, of course, the social services. For those of you who don't know anything about this case, you can find out a lot more by logging onto the UK column. That's the ukcolumn.org. There's some video clips there, earlier interviews with Paul, and a fair amount of information. The child was taken, screaming. His wife was screaming, and she was bruised, totally, all of them traumatised. When the baby was literally, there's no exaggeration, literally snatched from her mother's arms, and that child was only 4 hours old. Think about that. This hearing on Friday was to determine, or Paul was told and Ash were told, it was to determine the final decision whether they would receive their child back home. I checked with Paul prior to the hearing just to make sure it was still on. It's a long way to travel for, if it's been called off, and he assured me, yeah, there was still a hearing. However, the final hearing had been postponed until October the 31st of this year. Oh, right, so I don't go up there. But no, there's still a hearing. Hang on, they've postponed the final hearing to the 31st, yet there's another hearing. What is this about? Well, Paul told me about this, and I'll let you listen to what he has to say. Paul, the last time you were up here, it's supposed to be a sentencing hearing, right?
Yeah, it's commercial.
And they gave you a 3 months suspended sentence.
6 weeks suspended sentence.
Sorry?
6 weeks suspended sentence.
Oh, sorry, 6 weeks suspended sentence.
For telling the truth.
But you're under suspended for 6 months?
I don't know.
And you had a gag order which lasts until 2030. 30.
Yeah.
They're scared of something, I think.
They are, aren't they?
Right. Now, today was supposed to be a final hearing, yeah?
Yeah.
And, oh, sorry I was late, by the way. So apologies for being late. But then again, being a closed court, I didn't miss anything. It was supposed to be the final hearing.
Yeah.
They decided to suspend your final hearing until October the 31st.
That's right.
Okay, but there's still a hearing today anyway, and you didn't know what that was about at all until you turned up, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So, within the limitations of your gag order...
What gag order?
Oh, you haven't got a gag order.
Well, I don't see it as one. It wasn't made in the real court.
Well, what I'm saying is, don't say anything you're unwilling to have published.
Yeah, I've already told the judge my stance on things.
Okay. So, within the limitations of your own personal well-being.
That's the whole truth.
Of course. What the fuck happened? You've got a body like that.
Prison, isn't it?
Sorry?
That's why they're trying to prison me. So I've been telling the truth.
They still, yeah, but why? There's a final hearing suspended to October.
Yeah.
So what's today about?
They're on about placing my son, my kidnapped son, who's named after me, in the same placement as my kidnapped daughter. They've also said it's all about parenting our children, which I've got a recording, it's on Facebook, where from their own mouths as well, where they say it's about parenting our children. And I also put the case law where it says the state shouldn't get involved, where it's to do with parenting. The children are not in any harm, they've never been harmed.
Right.
So I said to the judge, how did they manage to get the emergency protection order in the first place? And there's even local policemen who know my family who agree. How did they?
I understand that original EPO wasn't valid anyway.
No. There's no stamp on the one from last year, no court seal.
No.
Made it a kidnap. Well, it's a kidnap anyway. And then this year, it was a photocopy. They failed to show the original, and I thought it just looked as though they'd made such an emphasis on the stamp, the seal, and it was a photocopy. And I just thought they've overdone it. They've made it look too official.
Okay.
But then there's no wet signature on it.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm saying that's a void order as well. It's another kidnap. The only way they could have obtained it legally or lawfully, using the truth, well, they just couldn't do that because it's about parenting, and it should be about if a child's at risk of serious harm. You know,
it never was.
No, they've got nothing.
But even there's no risk. What did they said? Maybe a risk of emotional abuse.
Yeah.
Well, every child is at risk of emotional abuse.
They've got rid of the words emotional harm now and changed it to just risk of harm.
They've got to specify what harm, haven't they?
The first two children were taken because we'd met all the care needs and the children wished to return home. But then the Kafka's guardian, Paul Healy, he said that in his opinion the children are at risk of emotional harm in the future.
His opinion?
And then he recommended adoption. Yeah.
That's Wiley?
That was in his opinion.
Was he qualified to make an opinion? I thought that was down to doctors and psychologists and medical workers.
Well, Staffordshire County Council say it's about parenting the children, which again is nothing to do with that.
So what was today about?
Today is about them.
Or was about, should I say?
They want to get a care order, another one. Apparently there's no care order on. So I'm not allowed to say what my son's name is.
Oh, right.
But I can say what my granddad's name was. And they want to put me in prison again for naming my granddad.
Right.
That's on the 20th of September. There's going to be another committal hearing.
Okay. It's a money-making scam because every time they have another hearing, who's making how much money?
Well, I've worked out the foster agency. They get paid about £2,000 per week per child. So they'll make another £14,000, I think, is it? £14,000, £17,000-ish out of this extended postponing it.
Yeah.
And then the solicitors who turn up, they're all making 10 grand each. The judge is making money. They're all making a good living out of stealing children and imprisoning the children, whether they call it foster care or whatever they want. But prison or foster carers, they get paid from the government, from your tax money, to hold these people prisoner, to look after them. And it's usually a couple of grand a week, you know, and yet they pay us next to nothing a week to look after themselves. You know, why can't they just well, they can keep the money, they can shove it up where the sun don't shine. I want to look after my children, raise my children as I was raised, as my grandparents raised their children, as going back through the generations as it's always been. And I don't know.
So for the people who are going to watch this,
a cruel and unusual punishment for parenting.
For the people who are going to listen to this, which would be all of the UK column subscribers. Got a little plug in there for the column, and whoever else comes across it on YouTube and whoever else shares it around. Definitely go on Facebook anyway, in my account, because they know that they already know I've been doing the videos. They said that in court last time. Remember, we know who's doing the videos. He's in court today. They said. Well, fine.
Videoed in court.
Sorry?
They're even claiming you videoed inside the court, and it was in the cafeteria in a public building.
That's between you and me at the moment. I was videoing in the court. Well, upstairs in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
I've made no secret about it.
Building.
I've made no secret about it. And I think they want to know how I've got the camera past security. But
it's none of their business.
All they've got to do is ask me. So anyway, the people who's going to watch this, and also there'll be a large number, no doubt, of parents in a similar position. What have you got to say to them? What would be your number one recommendation?
That these courts need to be opened up. All the evidence needs to be in the public domain, so the public can look at why children are being moved into what they class as care. Because there hasn't suddenly been a generation that started abusing their children. That's why there's so many children in care. What it is, there was adoption targets set in place by Tony Blair. They've scrapped them now. They've got adoption scorecards. So it's like a competitive sport.
Hang on, an adoption scorecard?
Yeah, if you go onto the CCN website, the County Councils Network, they've actually got, type in adoption scorecards in the search panel. You can see they've changed the adoption targets to an adoption scorecard.
Yeah, great.
So it's like a league table, and the people at the bottom get pushed out, and the people further up take over their child trafficking industry. So
I mean that's not an understatement.
Taking over until it's just one. Perhaps G4S will take over. I don't know. Kidnapping children in care homes and that. I've heard they've taken over some mental health.
G4S,
NHS now as well.
G4S, Serco.
Yeah.
Who knows? Goldman Sachs. Come on.
They've all got a vested interest in it anyway. It's a business for them.
Good grief.
Typical Tories.
So would you recommend people fight it?
Definitely.
And ignore the gag orders?
Expose it, ignore your orders, you can't imprison us all. And what's prison compared to them stealing your children?
That's right.
I mean, it's nothing. I'm willing to risk certain death for my children.
Okay.
And I'm sure a lot of parents out there will do the same.
Alright, Paul, thank you very much. This will go out.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens. But are you sure about this? Because I don't want you dropping you in
100% positive.
Right. I don't want to make matters worse than what they are.
I do not. Like the Staffordshire solicitor quoted me to the judge as saying, I don't give a shit. That's my words. You can quote me on the video, you're coming from my own mouth.
Don't give a shit. Thanks, Paul. Thank you very much. And we'll see what comes of it. Okay.
Oh, one other statement. Because I'm not represented at the moment, I couldn't find a Mackenzie friend. What I'm looking for is someone to help build a case against these people. Right, now that was Paul. Very hard done by social services, solicitors, and so on. Now, I'll ask him to repeat that because it's important. He did have a Mackenzie friend who, because he was in court, the gag order applied to him, and apparently because he was in court, he's now a witness of what went on,
Therefore, he's no longer allowed to be a Mackenzie friend. And that was a guy who knew his stuff inside out, back to front, very helpful, very intelligent, knows his stuff. And now he is forbidden from having anything to do with the case at all whatsoever. Now, we know there was another Mackenzie friend from, who was that?
Sent by John Hemming, the MP.
What happened with that one?
Very useful, very helpful.
Yeah.
But because she wanted money for travelling expenses, it's reasonable to ask that. It's obviously they can't afford to pay out on all these cases you represent, but I just couldn't afford the travel money and the parking expenses.
Yeah.
Because the benefits people have said that my wife's disability.
So basically, they wanted payment which you don't have.
Yeah.
So you lost that one.
Well, I've not lost anything. It's just a.
Right. So. If there's anyone out there who has some legal experience, representational experience, any barrister who has the guts to stand up for what is right, hey, put your hand up please. It's very, very difficult to find a barrister, a lawyer, solicitor, anyone, because as soon as you mention social services, hey, they back off. They don't want to know. Now even that should tell you something. And people will say, oh, it's all, no, if this was true, we'd hear about it. That is not so. The reason we don't hear about it is because there are secret courts and the gag orders stop people from talking. Now we have a unique situation here. Paul, who's got the guts to basically give them the finger. And this should be national news, you know. This is a, hey, what they call whistleblower, isn't it? Well, right? Truth. You know, he's telling the truth. He's telling you what's going on within the courts, within social services, and no one's taking any notice. No one's picking up on it. And he drastically, definitely, urgently needs some help from someone in the legal profession. Cheers, folks. It's my personal opinion, and this is only my opinion, because I've joined a couple of dots together and I may be way off base, but around the country now they are pushing fostering, £600 a week plus to foster a child. They're even paying people to adopt children. I've got something to say about that in a minute. But they are really pushing adoption. And this coincides, this marketing coincides with the bedroom tax. A lot of people have suffered from that. If you're on benefits, and increasingly people are on benefits, there's just no jobs available. And if you have a spare room, then you've got to, you know, your housing benefit is reduced. Or you move to a one-bedroom apartment. Well, they know damn well there's not enough one-bedroom apartments to go round. But hey ho, you could foster a child. Why not foster a child? You can get a few hundred a week for that. You won't lose your bed, you won't have to pay bedroom tax. You know, when these two things come together at the same time, hey, But that's just my opinion. My mind works that way. I may be way off base, so don't quote me on it. Do your own research on it and see if you can come up with a yay or a nay. Do let me know. I said I was going to say something about adoption, paid for. Well, I have no objection to people being paid to as temporary foster carers. They're providing a service, temporary care for a foster child, temporary care for a child until they can be found a loving home. That's fair enough, it's a job. But to adopt, pay for adoption, that's ridiculous. It really is. I mean, the idea of adoption is for a couple who either are unable to have children of their own or choose to adopt a child in addition to the family, rather than have another child of their own. Someone to take into the family as their own child and raises their own child. That's what adoption's all about. It's about love, it's not about money. To pay people to adopt a child, no, I'm very, very uncomfortable with that. I'll put that aside for a moment. Excuse me. I know I smoke too much. I'll probably drink too much coffee, but then again, it's now 5:10 in the morning. I've been up all night, so indulge me. It seems that what has happened with Paul's case, they couldn't have a final hearing. And too many people around. Okay. Many people know what is going on. Look, if they have a committal hearing in the 20th of September, please remember that date. And if you can possibly get to Derby, Crown Court, do so. Not only for moral support, but to take notes and be witnesses to what occurs there. Because there will be an open court. I think it was Judge Monday, I think his name was, who ruled that sentencing must be carried out in an open court. People need to know what's going on. Anyway, if Paul is imprisoned on the 20th of September, then that's it. No contact with anyone else. All mail going out of prison is censored. If he has no legal representation, what can he do? And then come the 31st, he loses his child. Game, set and match to the establishment. I think I'm past being angry. So, I don't know, I switched from being very, very angry to just wanting to cry about the whole affair. And not only just Paul and Asher and their son, but thousands of others. Tenet is big business. And finally, I'd like to reiterate what Paul said. please, if you know of anyone, or if anyone who's watching this can be of some usefulness to Paul, please stand up, put your hand up. You see, as our barristers come forward, but as soon as they realise that social services is involved, they don't want to know. Why not? Doesn't that tell you something? I'm not sure, but I suspect, having spoken to others, that if a barrister was to win a case against social services, they'd probably find their workload and therefore their income greatly diminished. I believe that is true, but I cannot state it as a fact. But I cannot see any other reason why barristers will back off. Just because it's a case against social services. Maybe there's a barrister out there who's retired. Who's willing to come forward, use his experience, knowledge, expertise, and to help Paul, and as a consequence many others in this situation. And ask for someone out there with a sufficient integrity to do this. And I say retired because they no longer have a career at risk. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you for watching. Please share this as widely as possible. Not only so that people have some idea of what the hell is going on, but also that it may reach someone who can help. Oh, one thing I will mention. Paul and Asher, for the first 2 years after they were married, Asher never got pregnant. Sometime around about 18 months or later, they decided, well, we're not going to get pregnant, we'll adopt a child. Social services, the adoption people said, you're an absolute ideal couple to adopt a child. And like many things, as soon as you stop trying, it happens. So having decided to adopt a child, they stopped trying, and lo and behold, Asher fell pregnant. Now all of a sudden, they've gone from being the perfect couple to adopt a child to them being told that any child they have might be a risk of harm. First it was emotional harm, now it's just harm. And there's no evidence to see whatever to suggest that they have ever hurt a child or would hurt a child. I thought I'd chuck that one in as well, to show you how upside down everything is. So please do share this video and see if we can't get some help for this young couple. Because if Paul goes to prison and he's Asher by herself, it's going to break him, you know. It'll certainly break Asher. Paul will cope. But it's going to destroy their lives. And if we can get some help and blow this wide open, not only would it be of great benefit to Paul and Asher, and of course the children, it will open up the doors for thousands of others. And this adoption business, I mean, how many adoptive parents or foster parents ask, were these children given up voluntarily for adoption? Is this child being fostered voluntarily? Not many, I think. Anyway, I'll wrap it up with that. There's lots more I could say, many thoughts going on in my head. Thanks again for listening. Catch you another time.